Hey people, Voice talking to you, and today we are taking a quick look at Wizdom Academy. This is a new build-your-own wizard school management sim set in a world where the flow of magic seems to be waning. If you've always dreamed of running your very own Hogwarts Academy and would like to check this demo out for yourself, I'll have a link for you down in the description where you can download it for free. Alongside that is a link to my Twitch channel, just in case you'd like to join us when we test these games out live. We don't really get much of a story or any sort of background in this demo. We are the new headmaster of a yet unnamed academy for wizards in an age where the Wizdom is said to be approaching. Now the game doesn't elaborate on that, so I have no idea what a Wizdom is, if it's good or bad, or what it means for the world at large, or even just our school. So use your imagination, I guess. Before we start our new school, we get to choose a name for it. Just make sure that name is 14 characters or less. Let's not get too creative now. Also, the text box in the naming interface is far left justified, which looks super weird since your name can't even fill half that space. From there, we arrive on the strange island in the middle of the ocean on which we will construct our school. The landscape here is very pretty, if a bit unremarkable, and is dotted with ancient arcane ruins of something. I don't really know. They didn't bother to explain it. The mana trees and these ruins are the only environmental features worth mentioning, aside from the impressive colossal golem that comes wandering past from time to time. Just like in real life though, running a school isn't free, and there are two resources we'll need to manage if we want to be successful. Those resources are mana and gold. Mana is a measure of our school's available magical energy, and can only be acquired from well springs constructed at mana trees. Gold, on the other hand, comes from the remarkably deep pockets of students enrolled in our academy. Mana and gold are both used in construction, but every building also requires a steady supply of mana to function, while teachers will need their salaries paid in gold regularly. By the way, when I say every building needs mana, I mean every building. Even the rooms used to store excess mana require an upkeep of mana. In addition to supplying our school with magic, the wellspring also denotes the space where we can build, so our chosen mana tree will effectively serve as the center of our school. That means we're pretty limited on how wide we can build, and this leaves a lot of empty space around the island that I don't think would be filled even with multiple well springs. And I'm a little curious what it's all for. Regardless, the solution to our horizontal building problem is to build vertically instead, and some structures could only be placed on certain levels. Now, since we are a magical school, we won't need contractors to build stuff, and there's a simple animation of mana flying to the room under construction. There aren't any sort of progressive building animations, though, so it's not super interesting to watch. When placing new buildings, a clearly visible grid appears, marking the buildable area and the zones blocked by ruins. There are arrows marking entry points on each structure, and we can line up the points or connect them with hallways to make one giant building. However, there's no marked grid squares to show you which spaces the new structure will occupy. Plus, the building ghosts are opaque, making it hard to see where you are placing things and to line up doorways. There's also zero dithering for trees, so good luck seeing what you're doing if you're trying to place something small. If that wasn't enough, there's also nothing stopping you from accidentally placing a large structure over your outdoor decorations, which means you can completely destroy your little garden and all the money spent on it with one misclick. Now, I do quite like the style of the building models, even if they are pretty stock wizard stuff. But the exterior of all these buildings are pretty identical. There's supposed to be more customization options coming in the future, but for now it ends up looking more like we tried building Hogwarts in a strip mall. Overall, it's pretty bland, and the devs definitely need to spice things up visually. There's not a whole lot of different buildings available yet either, and most of them only give you the barest minimum explanation of what they're for. As students graduate, we can earn points to spend on unlocking new structures. But, for the most part, advancement for our academy will come in the form of more of the same kinds of building rather than anything particularly new and interesting. At the end of the day, though, a school isn't defined by its construction, but by its students and teachers. Both students and staff will enter your academy through applications, so you'll have to approve each person that sets foot on your school grounds. The art for all of the students and the teachers is pretty nice, but it's also all AI art, if that matters to you. The devs have explicitly stated, however, that this art is just placeholders for now. Now, each student will be a little bit different, with procedurally generated names and different traits that make them more or less desirable. Some traits increase the speed at which they learn, move, or regain energy and motivation. Others will decrease their movement speed or cause them to start fights with other students if they get stressed. Now, the concept behind these traits is pretty neat, but in practice, they don't really seem to change much. I never saw a student get into a fight with another. I never saw them socialize, and I never encountered any problems with energy or motivation. Plus, a lot of these perks seem to do the same thing, and a few are listed in a really confusing manner. For example, one perk increases learning speed by 10%, while another says that that student learns faster than anyone else, whatever that means. Before long, it all just becomes a blur of green and red anyways, so sorting through and grabbing green while avoiding red becomes a very clinical and detached process. Teachers are a little more interesting, and each has their own preferred subject and asking salary. They also have their own perks, but they are the exact same set as the students. That doesn't sound like an issue until you get a teacher with learning speed perks, which I would assume doesn't do anything since the teacher isn't learning. Maybe this perk makes them teach faster instead, but if that's the case, the devs need to make that clear. Actually, I'd say this game needs to do a better job of explaining most things better. The tutorial is very spotty and mostly spits out objectives instead of telling us how to do anything. For example, we can negotiate lower salaries for our teachers with a little minigame, but the tutorial neither mentions this nor does it explain how the minigame works. Now, each time we accept a new student, we can choose from one of our available subjects for their diploma. Apparently, we get to decide their major at this academy, and choose whether or not to offer them a scholarship. Scholarships decrease the amount they pay you, but increases the length of their stay. If that mechanic doesn't quite seem to make sense to you, you're not alone. I eventually figured out why you would want them to stay longer, but no, the game didn't tell me. So apparently, your students have a limited amount of time at your school, whether they earn their diploma or not. If they graduated, we earn a set number of research points. If they don't, we lose 100 something. It just said minus 100. It never actually told me what I was losing 100 of. Now, to earn their diploma, a student has to master the subject we forced upon them. Spending time in class will increase their mastery, but decrease energy and motivation. They get these vitals back by sleeping and resting, I think. Sometimes I saw them napping by fountains and on benches, but I don't know if that was actually doing anything or if that was just a cute little idle animation. Classes don't seem to be a scheduled thing, though, and there is no day-night cycle. Not only does that mean more unchecked boxes in the visual and immersion departments, it also makes it hard to tell how much time has passed and removes any sort of regularity to school activities. If the students aren't in the classroom when the professor has the energy to teach, too bad. Now, the students and teachers both have little models you can see walking around the school, and there's a setting to hide the roof so you can actually see them inside the buildings. Unfortunately, these models are kind of bland, and their animations are like old Zoo Tycoon level stuff. Plus, I frequently found these models getting stuck on stairs and corners, leaving them trapped until their time ran out and they left without a diploma. So this actually interferes with gameplay too. Aside from the few school mechanics I've already mentioned, the only thing we really need to watch out for are mana droughts. These occur once every few cycles and seem to become increasingly frequent as time goes on. A mana drought abruptly turns the entire world red and stops your wellspring from producing mana, forcing you to rely on the mana that you've stored up. If you run out of mana, everything goes to shit, essentially. There isn't a single room that will function without mana upkeep. Students can't use beds in rooms not supplied with mana. Even mana storage rooms don't function unless they are also receiving mana for some odd reason. This is definitely not the first time I've seen a drought mechanic in a colony survival type game. In fact, it's not even the first time I've seen it this week. Now, that doesn't make it a bad mechanic on its own, but in this title, it's pretty odd. As of the demo, we can only have one wellspring, so our construction is heavily limited by the upkeep costs of rooms, as we cannot allow them to exceed our meager production. Pretty much, droughts serve to slow things down even further by forcing the player to suspend classes and trials. There's not really much you can do about this, since building additional mana storage will further reduce your income. I will come right out and admit, I didn't see this demo through to the end, and I didn't really feel bad about it either. The game was buggy, there wasn't all that much to do, and I constantly found myself looking at the mechanics and features that I still don't understand. There's an entire council of headmasters, apparently, and doing different tasks makes them like or dislike you. No clue what that does for us. The game just pointed it out and didn't bother to explain it. The concept behind this game isn't exactly unique. The gameplay mechanics, at least the ones I understood, are all things I've seen done before and done better. And the visuals, though they have their charms, aren't especially impressive. Wizdom Academy just generally fails to set itself apart from the crowd. If I had to pick one word to describe this game, it would be basic. Now, I don't want to call this one half-baked, but it's certainly undercooked. The UI is a mess, the gameplay is bare bones, and it all just doesn't mesh well. Now, with all of that in mind, this is a demo. I don't know if I would say it represents the game very well, but if you're someone who really wants some games like Spellcaster University, this has the potential to become that. Wizdom Academy is in really rough shape right now, even for a demo. But nonetheless, the fact that it's a demo means the finished game could end up being 100 times better. It'll take a lot of polish, some interesting mechanics, and an actual story to make it happen, but this could turn into a solid wizard school management sim if the devs really dig deep. Despite my misgivings, this might be a game worth keeping an eye on as it develops, to see if it can establish an identity of its own. I'm still a bit uncertain about it, but I'm also just the voice in your head. So what do you think about Wizdom Academy? Have any other games like this caught your attention recently? Is this one you'd like me to keep an eye on, or have you seen enough? Let's talk about it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, leaving a like really helps me out, and subscribing is the best way to support the channel and keep new videos coming your way, because I put out new reviews every single week. Thanks so much for listening to me today, and you'll be hearing from me again real soon.